It is Friday, the 4th of October, 2019. I'm in front of the Centaur Theatre in Montreal, and I'm basically sending a little message to CBC that they really should not spread misinformation and lies about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse on CBC Daybreak and CBC As It Happens, to say nothing of some regular CBC news reports. Unfortunately, the host of As It Happens, Carol Off, was fed highly misleading and even outright false misinformation and lies by Montreal Unitarian clergy abuse cover-up enabler Sue Montgomery during an interview in June, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was June 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly mid-June, shall we say. So basically, Carol Off interviewed Sue Montgomery, and Sue Montgomery, amongst other things, told Carol Off that there's no sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church. This is a brazen lie. There absolutely is clergy sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church, not to mention sexual abuse committed by Sunday school teachers, which are called religious educators in the Unitarian Universalist religious community. A certain number of Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist religious educators have been charged, tried, and convicted of what the UUA's attorney describes as such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So that is a fact that's easily verifiable, and yet Carol Off, not only allowed herself to be bamboozled by Sue Montgomery, but here's the clincher, refused to correct the situation. I brought it to the attention of As It Happens in phone calls and later emails, but also some tweets, including some tweets to Carol Off herself, and also tweets to the As It Happens Twitter account, that basically they'd been lied to by Sue Montgomery and that they needed to correct the situation. They needed to report the actual truth, and basically make it clear that they were lied to. It's just outrageous that Sue Montgomery can lie with complete impunity about clergy abuse and the cover-up and denial of clergy abuse on our national broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, if people don't understand what CBC stands for. So yes, we're talking about the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And unfortunately, due to, at minimum, some incompetence, and certainly some bias, the CBC has spread misinformation, disinformation, a certain number of outright brazen, bald-faced lies on Daybreak, on As It Happens, and they've refused to correct it. I don't mind if you get fooled by someone, if you get lied to and you don't realize you're being lied to because you didn't do enough research, but at least properly correct the situation once that's happened. Once it's been brought to your attention that, hey, you were lied to, and you need to tell the Canadian public what the actual truth is, and including the fact that you were lied to, then do that. Don't pretend nothing's wrong. Don't pretend that everything's okay. When you're told that you're spreading misinformation and disinformation, which includes outright lies, such as there's no sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church, there's no abuse in the Unitarian Church. These are both pretty well exact quotes that Sue Montgomery told Carol Off and also Ainsley McLellan on Daybreak. This is outrageous. It's just, it's basically, I don't know how a reporter with any experience and integrity could even think that there could even exist any religious community that has no abuse in it whatsoever. How is that possible? How can any church, any religious community of let's say 100 churches or 150 churches. By the way, the Unitarian Universalist Association has about 1,000 churches. How can any such religious community, especially one that's been around for decades, to say nothing of centuries, how can it not have any clergy sexual abuse whatsoever? Does that make any sense at all? Is that remotely credible? And yet, both Karloff and Ainsley McLellan allowed Sue Montgomery to say these things on CBC airwaves. CBC, as it happens, is a national show. Yeah. And so this was spread nationally. Daybreak is a Montreal show, but it's basically heard, I'd say, over a good section of the province. Not just Montreal, but certainly just in terms of Greater Montreal. There's thousands of people who listen to Daybreak, and they're being fed misinformation and lies, and if you don't mind my saying so, bullshit. One more word: fake news. Fake news. Unfortunately, when you spread absolute lies, you make no attempt to correct the situation, you're basically in the area of fake news. The upper part of the sign is blank, because it's not just CBC that's spreading fake news about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and the cover-up and so on. Other Montreal media are Bell Media, CTV News Montreal, CJD 800 have spread false information, especially CTV. CTV very, very foolishly spread completely false information, and when I asked them to correct it, all they did was they initially just removed the sentence that contained absolutely false information. They just removed it. They didn't acknowledge that they made any mistake, and they didn't say what the actual truth is. They just memory hold the sentence that said, these are not exact words, but basically essentially what the sentence said is that no Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse or a cover-up of clergy abuse have been proven in a court of law. Well, this is false. The cover-up may not have been proven in a court of law, but a certain number of Unitarian Universalist ministers have been charged, tried, and convicted of pedophilia and or rape. They went to jail, they had trials, they were convicted. So absolutely a certain amount of Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse has been proven in courts of law. And the fact is that a whole lot of clergy abuse, regardless of which community we're talking about, it never gets to a court of law. It's dealt with internally. Unfortunately, CBC is misleading the Canadian public, misleading the Montreal public, and as I said, if you're fed misinformation and through whatever excuse you broadcast it, that's one thing to be bamboozled. It's one thing to be lied to and swallow the lie and not challenge it. But when somebody says, "Hey, you were lied to, you're spreading misinformation," well, then you should correct it. And so far, neither CBC Daybreak nor, as it happens, have responsibly corrected the situation. They did, CBC, as it happens, did tweak their written webpage about the interview. They did say that I complained about, the situation, but they didn't in any way acknowledge that Sue Montgomery actually had lied to them. They did not acknowledge that there actually is clergy sexual abuse in the Unitarian Universalist religious community, and that it has in fact been, there have been attempts to cover up and outright deny it, including by Sue Montgomery. When Sue Montgomery gets on CBC radio and tells CBC listeners there's no abuse in the Unitarian Church, there's no sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church, this is a brazen lie. This is outright denial of clergy abuse in the Unitarian Church. This is lying to the Canadian public. And unfortunately, CBC has done absolutely nothing to correct that situation. It's been, let's see now, almost July, August, September. It's almost like 3 months since Sue Montgomery lied on CBC As It Happens, and it's more than 2 months, I think, since she lied on Daybreak. So that they've had plenty of time to correct the situation, and they have not done so. So we have a bunch of people coming. So it looks like most of the people are actually coming from the other direction, so perhaps point the picket sign down through this way. But we're just going to make sure this camera's still running, because it sometimes shuts off. Okay, yeah, we're doing okay here. So 10 minutes. Okay, so people going by, they're not coming for the event. I'm protesting against
yeah, I know what you're protesting against. Go somewhere else.
Why?
Why do you wrong?
I'm wrong?
Yes, you're wrong.
I'm wrong? How do you know I'm wrong? Did CBC tell you I'm wrong?
No, I read. Guess what? I read.
Yeah, you read fake news. You read lies.
You are fake.
No, I'm not fake news. I can assure you that hundreds of Unitarian churches have been affected by clergy sexual abuse, including pedophilia and rape. That's an absolute fact. So this woman is telling me that I'm wrong, that I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, she says she reads. This is hilarious. She says she reads. What she's reading is misinformation and lies fed to her in mainstream media, including the CBC. It is fake news. She's saying I'm fake news? Well, no, I'm sorry. The fake news is being spread by CBC, unfortunately. Very, very disappointed in CBC because I expected better from them. I actually expected better from CTV as well. And even CJD, I actually expected them to responsibly report facts and truth and verify things. They did no such thing. They spread misinformation and lies. They're still doing it. And this woman thinks she's being fed the truth. She thinks I'm the one who's wrong. As if any religious community of any size can have zero abuse, can have zero sexual abuse. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's totally ridiculous that this could be the case. And yet, you know, Sue Montgomery gets on CBC, Daybreak, and CBC As It Happens and tells Montrealers, tells Canadians nationally that there's no abuse in the Unitarian Church. There's no sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church. Well, absolutely there is. And this woman is fooled by that. See, this just proves that there actually are people that believe the bullshit that's fed to them by CBC Daybreak and CBC As It Happens, because, you know, basically Carol Off is the voice of authority. You know, God forbid that Carol Off would lie to Canadians. God forbid that Carol Off would allow misinformation and bullshit to be spread to Canadians on As It Happens. No. As It Happens is the gospel truth. We can't possibly doubt what's told us by Carol Off on As It Happens. It has to be the truth. Carol Off would never lie to us. Carol Off would never allow Sue Montgomery or any other person to spread lies and misinformation on As It Happens. God forbid that would happen. Unfortunately, this woman is basically fed a lie, and she believes it. So anyhow, we're having a little protest here, and anyone who wants to check the facts, all they have to do is Google the pertinent keywords here, and they'll find out what the truth is. If they, you know, I shouldn't even say Google, because actually Google suppresses stuff. You know, they push search results down. They'd be better off using Bing and some other search engines where there's less finagling of the results. Anyone who wants to do some serious research should research using a few different search engines to see what comes up, because basically Google cannot be trusted to, you know, not keep things hidden away a bit through their algorithms and so on. So I think we're going to wrap this up soon. Good day, sir. You looking at me? Are you disapproving of my protest against Unitarian clergy abuse cover-up, courtesy of CBC Radio? Oh, you didn't look too too happy, that guy. He was like staring at me. I thought he was reading the signs, but no, he was giving me the look. The look, if looks could kill, I'd be dead right now. This guy was like staring at me, like as if I'm the bad guy. No, I'm telling the truth here. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that I have to be here. CBC had plenty of opportunity to correct the situation. They chose not to. So I'm going to protest. And believe me, this is just the first protest. There will be others. I intend to go to CBC headquarters and protest there. And we shall see. But I knew that there was a Massey Lecture tonight. I knew that this was a prominent event. And I said, you know what, let's send a message to CBC tonight. Let's see how CBC likes it when there's a protester outside their Massey Lecture being held in Montreal. I got a feeling they won't be too happy about that. Here. All right? So, there. Let's just see what the time situation is. It's 16, yeah, so I think we're not going to go much longer here. We still got people showing up. And just have a look. Hey, sir. Almost done. Almost done. So, excuse me. Ça va? Il faut le faire. Il faut le faire.
Responsabilité. Responsabilité. C'est quoi?
Why do women, including female CBC journalists like Carol Off, aid and abet Unitarian Universalist clergy views cover up? And you know, unfortunately they do. So yeah, and I tried to get it sorted out, and they didn't sort it out. So yeah, so somebody wanted to see the sign, so showed it to them, read it out to them. So yeah, we're not going to be here much longer. I think basically, you know, close to an hour worth of video should be enough, and some photos, and we'll do a blog post.